The Game Boy printer is a typical example of Nintendo's quirky approach to innovation. It's styled after the original DMG-01 Game Boy, but it was actually released almost 10 years later in 1998, and with the model number MGB-007 and going by the name Pocket Printer in Japan, it's actually part of the Pocket family of Game Boy products, and it was launched alongside the Game Boy Camera MGB-006. The Game Boy printer is compatible with a surprisingly long list of games, but it's mainly meant for use with the Game Boy Camera, and it uses thermal printing technology, much like a till receipt, to churn out crude, monochrome prints of your photos that just ooze charm. I've had this printer for many years and it's been faulty for as long as I can remember, but with some Game Boy Camera projects in the pipeline, I wanted to revisit this little icon and restore it to its former glory. Hi and welcome back to the shed. I'm Joe Bleeps and this is my Game Boy printer. It's a bizarre little contraption, but in terms of encouraging people to take selfies on portable hardware and sharing the photos with friends, Nintendo were clearly ahead of their time. After a bit of work, I've got this one looking like new and working to a decent standard. And in this video, I'll be showing you the process I went through to strip it down, clean it up and nurse it back to health after some fairly extensive battery corrosion. How difficult was that? Let's take a look. This is my Game Boy printer. It hasn't worked for a good while, but when I opened up the battery compartment, it was a pretty safe bet to predict what might be the main problem. This thing takes 6 AA batteries, so if you've had a battery leak, that is a lot of corrosion to clean up from 12 battery terminals. To clean these properly, it's best to remove them completely, which involves opening up the printer, but it's a good idea to open it up for inspection anyway and check for any other potential issues. In addition to this, it looks like something sticky was spilt on mine at some point, so as well as cleaning up the battery terminals, and you're also going to need to clean up the plastic parts too. The 6 tri-wing holes holding the main unit together, these are all fairly easy to get at, with one of them inside the battery compartment. Before separating the two halves, you'll need to remove the cover from the paper roll compartment by releasing the catch at the end of the unit and then just lifting it off. If there's any paper in there, remove the roll by cutting it with scissors and leave any excess in place. Don't pull it out like I did before seeing the warning sticker underneath that told me not to. I think that might have degraded the quality of my prints, at least for a short while. After you've repaired it, you can just press the feed button and then safely remove any of the paper before loading a new roll. Next, separate the two main halves and remove any debris you might find inside. Inspect this for any damage. In this case, I was grateful that the leakage and corrosion didn't seem to have spread any further than the battery contact. It could definitely have been a lot messier. There's just 2 crosshead screws to be removed inside to allow you to separate the motherboard assembly from the shell, bringing 2 battery terminals with it, which is pretty straightforward. However, the rest of the battery terminals will likely test your patience. That is putting it mildly. There's little internal clips holding them in place. When they were originally put in, they're simply pushed in place until the clips lock in place. To get them out, however, you need to get something small in the gaps to push the clip away from its catch and then pull the terminal out while the clip is still disengaged. It's awkward. I found a combination of a spudger, a small screwdriver, the end of my tweezers, and a lot of patience did help. There's 2 clips with 2 contacts side by side on them. They're fairly easy to get out, but the smaller ones have got like 2 clips that you got to disengage at the same time while you pull the terminal out, and it can be teeth grindingly frustrating. It'd be difficult at the best of times, but with a load of encrusted battery corrosion all over everything, some of them are held pretty firmly in place. It is doable though, just take your time and avoid doing anything rash that might end up damaging the plastic. As for the 2 terminals attached to the motherboard, I could have desoldered them from the motherboard and then treated them separately and then soldered them back on later, but in this case I decided to leave them attached. Either option's got its pros and cons, but this way I felt I'd at least be certain they'd stay securely attached to the motherboard in exactly the right spot. To remove the deposits from the battery corrosion, I used distilled vinegar. If you're familiar with my videos, you'll know I've used cider vinegar in the past, which is pretty good, but I recently got my hands on this stuff and really seeing it do its thing is like magic. The corrosion just literally fizzes away and dissolves before your eyes, leaving the terminals looking like new. And it was about 29p for a bottle from Aldi too, so absolute bargain. I filled a small container with the vinegar and dropped all the loose terminals in there, making sure that they were fully submerged. The acid of the vinegar reacts with the alkali of the battery leakage, and you see it happening straight away. Occasionally agitate the terminals with a spudger, move them around just to get the more stubborn deposits off, and once they're all clear, you need to remove them, wash them, dry them off, and clean them up thoroughly to remove any traces of the vinegar, and you prevent any unwanted corrosion from that. For the motherboard, I dipped the ends in the tub and just waited for a bit. I didn't submerge the board or components, of course, so I had to just hold it in place, but it's a few short minutes for it to work, so it's not much of an inconvenience, especially in comparison to desoldering and resoldering the connectors. I felt like I've made the right decision in the end anyway. I used the pointed end of a spudger along with a toothbrush to help clean some of the more stubborn deposits. The flat end of the spudger is also good for separating bits at the end of the spring in case there's any corrosion hidden away in there too. It is really amazing how well they come out. A total transformation with plenty of metal now exposed, ready to provide a much better connection between all the batteries. Next, I used the same vinegar on cotton buds and kitchen roll to help remove any of the deposits from the plastic parts too. There are a lot of nooks and crannies and you'll keep finding more to clean, so you might have to get creative with how you get in there. I cleaned up the motherboard and the print cylinder next. I was wary of doing too much to the cylinder in case it affected the print quality, but there were some stubborn sticky bits on there, so I used isopropyl alcohol and some compressed air to get the surfaces clean and get rid of any bits of debris from the gaps. The upper shell is made up of a few parts and it's easier to separate them before doing any cleaning. To remove the black cover with the logo on it, lift the tab and it slides out easily. I cleaned them all up with more isopropyl alcohol, cotton buds and a soft cloth with a soft brush to get into the gaps. There are some plastic catches inside the shell holding the two buttons in place. These are fairly easy to disengage and allow you to just pop both of the buttons out. I then did the same thing to remove any dirt or gunk from the main top shell and reassembled with the parts I'd removed. Final reassembly is pretty straightforward. Put the motherboard in the lower shell, being careful to correctly locate those two battery contacts in their slots before lowering it in place and putting the two screws in to secure it. Then put the top shell on, being careful to line up the power switch in the correct position. Flip it over, put the 6 tri-wing screws back in place and then slide your nice clean contacts in place. They should slide in easily, but that last push to clip them in place is easier with something thin like a spudger. If they're proving more difficult than they should, double check to make sure you've got the right one in the right place and that it's the right way around. It is easy to get mixed up. Now you can put your batteries in, reattach the battery cover and switch on your printer. With any luck, the battery light will illuminate and you'll hear a loud whir from the motor. It is pretty loud. If you've got a bit of paper in there still, you can test out the feed button and hopefully it all just comes through for you. It does move slowly, so do be patient. Once it's clear, you can feed in your paper roll and keep the button held until the end of the paper appears at the print opening. You can now reattach the print roll cover. Once you've established that there's some power, it's time to do some testing. When I was testing mine out, it turned out that my decades-old paper roll wasn't really any good at this point, so you might experience the same, but fear not. Z-Labs sell compatible rolls, and even better than that, this paper is self-adhesive, so you can even print your own little stickers. How cool is that? Even better, if you buy some using the link in the description and use the code JOEBLEEPS at the checkout, you'll get 5% off your order, as well as helping to support this channel. So that's got to be worth a look. My first few prints weren't so good, maybe due to debris getting stuck in there or the cleaning process being a bit rough, or more likely when I yanked out that bit of paper earlier on. But still, after a few prints, they were looking pretty good. I took a few photos of my dogs and the printer itself with my Game Boy camera, loaded them up on my chunky yellow Game Boy Pocket and connected it to the printer with a link cable. Now the original Game Boy link cable won't work for this. It needs to be the second generation one with the same size plug that fits in the Game Boy Pocket, Game Boy Light and the Game Boy Color. Again, these are available from Z-Labs and I'll leave a link in the description for those too if you're going to need one. With the cable attached, switch on your printer, use the camera software to choose your photo and send it to the printer, and then it's time to watch the magic. Your very own lo-fi pixel portraits that you can stick anywhere you like. I do these sorts of projects all the time, and more often than not you end up exactly where you started and nothing works. So it's always a good day when things actually work out as you planned. If you try and fix stuff yourself and it doesn't work, don't blame yourself. It happens to us all and you'll have better days. And well, if it wasn't working in the first place, you've nothing to lose by trying. In this case, I am loving having this thing restored back to its former glory, and I'm loving the tactile delight that is taking photos and printing out my little pictures. It's great fun, and no doubt it's something I'll keep coming back to. So that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and whether you're a new or a regular viewer, if you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up, and if you've got anything to say, let me know in the comments. I love interacting with you all and seeing what you think of these videos I'm making. I'm trying to post new content each week, so subscribe and sign up for notifications if you want to be part of that. I do appreciate your support, and it is the best way to help this little channel keep growing. Don't forget, I've got affiliate links in the description for Z Labs too. Follow the link, enter the code Joe Bleeps, and you'll get 5% off your order, and you'll help out my channel by giving me a small commission from each sale without it costing you any extra. This is Joe Bleeps signing off from the shed. Should be some videos popping up here if you want to keep watching me, and in the meantime, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.